Today, we have a candid conversation about social media and the effects on our mental health and well-being. My name is Dr. Trina Clayeux. I'm the CEO of Give an Hour, a mental health organization that empowers people impacted by human-made trauma on their healing journey. And we are joined today by Stephanie Szostak and Richard R.B. Botto. Stephanie is an actress, author, and Give an Hour ambassador, and speaks about overcoming failure, being an outsider in the industry, and living life with authenticity. And RB is the CEO and founder of Stage 32, where we are gathering here today, along with being an actor, producer, screenwriter, and voiceover artist. Hello to you both.
Great to be here. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for engaging in this very important and timely conversation. So I'll set this up a bit. So like most things, social media has both positive effects and some negative impacts. And during today's conversation, we'll explore this with both of you, given your personal experiences and unique insights. So we're going to jump in. This first question I absolutely love, so I'll put it out for whoever wants to start. But social media is the main mode of communication these days, and a lot of times social decency isn't applied. How do you think this has affected issues like bullying, depression, anxiety when it comes to people's overall mental health? And what do you suggest that we could do to protect our mental well-being?
Go ahead, Steph. You go.
Really?
Yeah, of
God
course.
damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Decency.
It's an easy one.
Yeah, decency is really, it feels like it's gone out the door on social media, which, by the way, is not just social media anymore. It's also news and sports and shopping, and it's 24/7 playing on a loop. And because of the way it's structured, it's anonymous. There's no repercussion. You don't have to look at somebody in the eye to say something. So it sort of gives you the freedom to be a jerk and forget human decency. And also, I think it's so easy not to be curious about somebody anymore when you're just so quick to judge them. It plays, I judge all the time. We all judge. And I feel like social media brings out all the worst in me. I'm the first one to judge somebody for what they're posting, and then I'm like, what am I doing? Then I judge myself for judging somebody. And anyway, I think then if you are at an at-risk population, if you are a person of color, if you are LGBTQ, if you are even a teenager, all this noise and the chaos, the dispute, all of that lands even harder on your plate. And it's easy to feel like you're the only one who doesn't have it figured out, and like the world is going out of control.
Absolutely. What about you, RB? Thinking of how this has affected issues that we're seeing in mental health these days.
Yeah, I think Stephanie brings up a lot of really great points. The anonymity part of it, I think, is a big part of it, right? I mean, I think especially what we're seeing now on broad-based social media platforms, what we're finding on Stage 32 is that people are deleting those apps rapidly. Like over the last year, it's become, we just did a survey. We're in the middle of doing a survey that we're really excited about releasing the results on. And what we're seeing, not to give away all the results right away, but is that, it's an incredibly large number of people that have been deleting broad-based social media apps. And they're doing it. The reason why they're doing it is either they feel like the toxicity is affecting their mental health, or they feel like they're getting bullied, or they feel like if they step out and post anything, they're going to be bullied. And that's where I think Stephanie's point about anonymity comes into play. These broad-based social media platforms, invite the idea that you can be anonymous. And the reality of the situation is a lot of people put equal weight into somebody that's anonymous and somebody who, whose word is an experienced word, somebody that comes from a place of knowledge. And they put equal weight into that. And I think when you put equal weight into somebody that really doesn't have the qualifications, or you don't know, it really does beat you down. One of the first things that we did at Stage 32, one of the first decisions that we made was to make sure that everybody stood in front of their own name. You have to be on the platform with your own name. That doesn't mean that people might come in and make put an alias up and everything like that. But if you're here on a professional networking site to get jobs in the industry and to make connections in the industry, of course, it doesn't help you to be, putting up a fake name, right? It helps you to be out there in front of your name, building a brand in front of your name, which I think is something that I'm sure we'll talk about as we move along.
Yeah.
But also, presenting yourself in a way that makes other people take notice of you. And to be able to do that, you need to be in a welcoming environment. And I don't know that the broad-based social media platforms are so welcoming anymore.
I love what both of you said so much about. I mean, it sounds like the intention behind your engagement with social media. So your intention for the platform and the exchange and the decency that goes into it, you have to build that in. But I'm assuming that you're having to put your own intention around how you personally and professionally engage in social media. Can you give a couple ideas of what that might look like for you?
You want me to go first? Are we switching up the
Why
batting
not?
order?
Yeah, you can go again, and then I'll take a lead on one of them. Again. But you nailed the first one so well that I feel like you've got to start us off again.
Okay. I think I love what you said, Trina, about intention and having clear intention. And I think that's so important, even just when we start our day. What's my intention today? And, what's my intention as a parent? So what's my intention when I use social media? And for me, I wouldn't be on social media if it wasn't about work. I know that it's important to toot my own horn in a way, but more important than that, now I've discovered that it's great. I can keep up with other people's work. I can support their work. I can talk about Give an Hour, about this book that is all about helping people, hopefully. So if that's my intention, and I'm clear that it's not ego-based, it's not about likes, comments, it's just about sharing things that are important, that are in alignment with my work. So it's about creativity, my inspiration, and hopefully what I'm putting out, what projects I'm putting out in the world.
Yeah, I love this word intention. I love that, because really you have to ask yourself, really, why are you on social media? What are you looking to get out of that? And I don't mean in an opportunistic way. I mean in a way that is going to make you feel good. First of all, that you're wading into those waters and that those waters feel warm and calm and great. And what is the ultimate goal? What is the ultimate goal that you're looking, is it just friendships? That's fantastic. Is it for business purposes? Is it for, people in the entertainment industry, for example, to make those relationships? We know that this is, a very tribal business and runs on relationships. So, are you doing that? And then the secondary part of that intent is behavior. How do you put yourself out there? How do you do it selflessly? How do you build relationships? I think one of the biggest misconceptions about social media, and I think it's because, it's, you're behind the glow of your laptop and you're alone, is that you have to create a new persona. You don't have to create a new persona. You should be treating your online life the same way you treat your, for lack of a better way of putting it, real world life, right? Your brand, when you're out at a conference or, in a meeting, your brand should be the same. And I don't want the brand word to be too technical either, but everybody does have a brand. What you put out there defines who you are, and should be exemplary of who you are and what your intent is. So, I like that word a lot. I think that, if you can wade into those waters, like I said, with that solid, knowing what you want, I think the journey becomes a lot easier. And then, of course, how you curate and cultivate who you follow and who you engage with will become much more focused.
Yeah, those
Absolutely.
algorithms can actually work for you. Once you're careful on who you follow, all of a sudden you get fed more content that feeds you more good stuff versus the other stuff.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. And I love around talking about intention, and then, thinking of a brand and your intention to come on and be creative and self-expression. And part of that is going to be your brand, which I think lends itself well to kind of the next question, which is more around the inundation that we feel looking at social media and kind of mindlessly scrolling. and we're getting images and feedback to let us know what we should look like, what we should be doing, what we should be involved in. But how does that constant comparison to others affect self-esteem, self-worth? And are there some mitigating things that we can do to protect ourselves from that?
That's a great question. Part of that is lifestyle versus business, right? Part of it is, are you on social media for lifestyle purposes? Do you want to share pictures of your salads, your this, your that? I mean, but there's something to that too. There's something to authenticity, right? But if you're on there, as a lot of people are in our business, for the purposes of meeting people to help further your career and things along those lines, then I think it becomes a little bit easier, because again, if you're cultivating, Stephanie made a great point about the algorithm. If you're curating your feed, if you're curating who you're listening to, if you're curating, even things like, you don't realize, but even when you go and like somebody's post, you're going to get fed more of that. So if you're liking the right things, if you're interacting with the right people, what eventually happens is that your feed becomes much more positive, much more friendly, much more of what you're going to want it to be for your goals and your intent. And then it becomes less toxic, right? And then it frees you up to be more, to put yourself out there more. So those are the things that are entirely in your control, curating who's in your feed, curating what you like, who you respond to, and all of that. And I think that will make it a more inviting thing for people to want to contribute more.
Yeah, and also I feel like just being aware that our self-worth, can come from two places. It can come from within, or it can come from the outside. And we all go, it's not like, oh, I'm so great, my self-worth is also always from the inside. Like, we all get affected by people's opinions, and by whether or not we fail at something, then we're going to feel lousy. But just if we're aware of it, I think then it can help our relationship with social media. Because when you post something, it's tribal. Like, we want people to like us, we want the likes, we want the comments, and when they don't like us, we're like, why did they not like? I mean, are those, that little wheel in our head can just spin out of control, and in a hurry it makes us feel like we're less than, we're not part of the tribe, we're not liked, we're not good enough. So in a way, that's an opportunity for learning, all right, well, where does my self-worth come from, and how do I not get affected by that as much? That's what my book is about.
And that's great. I love that point. It's a quality over quantity thing. It should be. That should be the mentality. It should be a quality over quantity thing. We shouldn't be chasing likes. We shouldn't be chasing, especially, you don't want likes and all that from people that are not in the realm of what you're trying to attract, right? Or in the realm of what your intent is. We keep coming back to that word, right? So it's not about, carpet bombing the hillside. It's about really finding your smaller tribe and finding and having it be more impactful and more healthy. Because, the chasing of likes, it's like everything else. That's why people are addicted to social media, because they're chasing that. And it goes back to what you were saying, Dr. Trina, about that self-esteem. When you're chasing those likes, you may sit there and go, oh my God, why didn't this post work? Like, why, why? And sometimes it's just the freaking algorithm. You know what I mean? Right. Sometimes it's just that thing, but it shouldn't matter. What really should matter is the quality of the interactions, the quality of the relationships, and the fact that you're embracing the long game. It's a long game to build relationships. I always say to people, it's like, think about your friendships, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't have your best friend now wasn't your best friend the day you met that person. Right. And the relationships you're going to build on social media are not going to be instantaneous. You may, attract some people instantaneously, but it's going to take time to build those relationships. And if you embrace the long game and embrace quality over quantity, I think you kind of put yourself in a no-lose situation.
Yeah, and also when you go to a party in real life, sorry, Trina, when you go to a party and you're not expecting to be liked by everyone, you're just, you connect only with a few. And in a way, why is our expectation different on social media? I love that, quality over quantity.
Yeah, and some people are chasing the validation of people that they wouldn't sit down and have a beer with.
No,
Exactly.
You know what I'm
definitely.
saying? It's like, so it really is like social media is a massive, massive tool when harnessed correctly, right? But
Mhm.
that's it. You got to harness it correctly, and just keep using that word. You got to know your intent and you got to know your goals.
Yeah. I think that idea of elevating your awareness about how you're engaging and why you're engaging, and then what limitations do you want to put on that, is one strategy that can use in order to stay mentally healthy, as you said, RB. So when you think of the responsibility of like influencers and celebrities, when it comes to curating like what's appropriate social media content, I think a little bit of this is like, are you using this for business? Are you using this for likes? and really understanding like what that intention is. But do you feel like for folks like you who are in the industry, you have these platforms, you have all these followers, do you have a level of responsibility, and what does that look like for you?
This question, you go first, Steph. That's you jump off this cliff first.
Okay. Well, I don't I don't feel that I'm an influencer, so because I'm not selling anything. So and my responsibility is just the same that my responsibility is in life, I would say, is to be kind and to be myself. It's also a public platform, so I'm not going to share private things there. Just
Right.
be aware of that. I have boundaries. I'm not going on there to have one-on-one conversations, and keep it professional.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a great question. As the CEO of the biggest social media platform for entertainment, I do feel a little bit of a responsibility. I do feel like you have to lead by example a little bit, right? And I like to say that my brand on social media is inspirational, aspirational, motivational. Like, that's what I aim for with most of my posts. But it's also complete transparency and brutal honesty. But that honesty is in service to teaching people about the business. A lot of people, there's a lot of bad information out there. There was a lot of bad information during the strikes that, it pained me to see lower level writers and lower level actors, people breaking in right now, pre WGA, not SAG yet, be fed information that I felt was very, very harmful, not only to their trajectory or the path towards becoming a success in this business, but also from a mental health standpoint. It was very, very negative and very toxic. And so I do feel a responsibility sometimes to jump in there and say, look, given my, 15 years experience in this business, I could tell you, being in the trenches right now, I could tell you this is the way it is. So I do feel a little bit of responsibility that way, but I agree with Steph. There needs to also be boundaries to that, to a certain extent. It's, you give of yourself. And most people, I have to say, most people are very respectful of that. You're always going to have, one or two that overstep, and, people that come to you and just say they want, read my screenplay. I've never met you before. Like, they don't build relation, that kind of thing. But most people, if you do it over and over and they see how you present it, then they kind of understand that this is the boundary, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that, again, when you identify what your brand is and you identify what you want to give and you identify what your goals are, I think it becomes much easier to navigate and much easier to decide what your responsibility is, not only to yourself, but to your audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned the SAG strike, and just as an example, how did you engage, or did you engage differently in that period of time? Because I imagine that, that it was an incredible amount of stress just watching it, from TV and radio, or TV and news. But what was your intention? How did you set an intention for helping support your members?
Just again, the goal during the strikes was to give our membership the honest truth of what was going on, to take away the negativity, to take away, a lot of people during the strikes, of course, were not motivated. They felt beaten down, regardless of what the position was in the industry, whether they were part of the union or not. One thing that we did to try to boost everyone's mental health was we gave away over $200,000 in education just to give people the opportunity to sit and learn during this. I mean, look, you know, it's a negative thing to be out there on those lines every day, and progress isn't being made. And if you're not if you're not living in LA and you're a writer, you're an actor, you're watching this from afar and feeling like maybe it's hopeless and maybe you don't have the community around you, that you might have when you live someplace where filming gets done all the time. So we wanted to make sure that everybody around the world was going to be inspired and motivated. So that's why we gave away the education. But what we also did was through our blog and through other methods, we kept people up to date on what was really going on. And, basically telling everybody, look, this too shall pass. There is going to be an end to this thing. And it's better to be prepared for when it does end than to be standing still and then starting to run the second it's over. So keep running, keep jogging, keep being motivated. And, when you're done, you'll be in a position of, you'll have a competitive advantage.
And I actually saw some post that you did that I loved, where you just told people to focus on what they can control. You're like, this is a good time to create, be creative. You don't need to wait for somebody to tell you to be creative. And then you also said, everybody's saying this is going to happen, that's going to happen, drama and the doom and gloom. And you were like, we don't know what, like, don't dramatize. And, I love that, because that's what all the news does, is give you the worst case scenario all the time.
I appreciate that very much, because the performative nature of some of the stuff that was going on broad-based social media, I thought was, look, I get people are passionate and that's fine. But there was some performative stuff and some bullying that was going on there. People were afraid to challenge anything. And I don't think that that's right. And I don't think that's fair. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of the people that were out there screaming at the top of their lungs, they didn't know what was going to happen either. Nobody was in those rooms. I mean, I know people that are very high up at the WGA, but they weren't in those rooms. And quite frankly, they were in the dark. They had an idea, but not really. And that's, credit to the WGA negotiating team that they didn't let that stuff out. They didn't want that to leak. Credit to them. They did their job. But, you had people on the broad-based social networks acting like they had inside information, and they didn't. And that's damaging too. You're giving people false hope. And in another breath, if anybody challenges that, you're beating them up and bullying them. And so you got to control what you can control, shut out the noise. I think that's a big part of what we're talking about, all of us, right? It's how do you shut out all the noise? How do you shut out all the negativity? How do you shut out, like we spoke about earlier, the voices that aren't qualified to, where it's just an opinion. It's their opinion. It doesn't, the opinion isn't gospel, right? The gospel is gospel. When we had the settlement, that was the gospel, right?
That's it. Yeah, and this is such a great segue into the next question, because when you said you invited people to stay creative and that they didn't need permission to be creative, I think of these different periods and kind of trials in our life where we have transition or we have adversity. And if you don't have some sort of, and I'll use Stephanie's term here, a playbook, something that you can really lean into and something that you have practices, a lot of times you can feel really unoared and kind of like you're drifting, especially in times like that went on for so long. So Stephanie, could you tell us a little bit about Selfish and how you see it as a playbook of practices that people can use before we have a really stressful situation, but also during those times?
Sure. So a playbook is actually what I created as a tool for my own emotional well-being, because for the past 10 years, I've been learning and growing, but I realized that it doesn't matter how many skills I learn, tools I learn, I forget them because I don't have a place to put them all in. So I created a playbook, and in it, I put all the bits and pieces that help me think better, feel better, and do better. And it's an album on my phone. There's pictures and there's word reminders, and I start every single day looking at it. And what that does before I connect to the news, to email, to text, to social media, to other people's agendas, I connect to myself. I remind myself of how I want to show up in the world for me. That's why it's called Selfish, but also for others, because when we are connected to what truly matters to us, to our higher guiding principles, then we're more apt to respond versus react. We're more apt to bring, our better selves to the world and those around us. I've been using it for 5 years, and I like to say it's like mental fitness, because it's doing the reps every morning of the good stuff, is of what connects me to the better me, as opposed to doing the other reps, which is, focusing on what's not in my control, focusing on fear, on other people's opinions, etc. I actually heard a stat, and then I'll shut up, but I heard a doctor say that they figured out that right now, within 15 minutes of waking up, we consume as much information on our phones as we did 50 years ago in a week. And the impact of that is that it's harder and harder for us to sort out all this information and focus on the one that serves us well. And negativity wins over positivity. So we go to fear, we go to doubt, we go to blame.
You got to hold up that book. Hold it up.
Mhm.
Guys, you got to buy this book. Seriously.
So this book will help you create your own playbook with your own content. I'm not telling people what to put in their playbook. It's got 8 exercises that will help you look at your own life through different lenses, different angles, and realize what you want, what you're capable of, and what really matters to you, your intentions.
Right,
Mhm.
right. And it's that personal media. So you have something that you can
Oh,
engage
yeah.
with personally that doesn't go out to
Yeah.
everyone else. That then as you engage with your social media, I just love the idea of like really grounding yourself in what's important to you before you start engaging in this larger platform. And as you said, RB, a lot of those folks, don't matter in your life. Some might, some you don't know yet, but it gives you a way of thinking of how you're going to engage and show up in that social media space, because it's real for all of us. I mean, it's a whole nother persona in some respects that we engage with. So when
Yeah,
you think sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, RB, you'll like this, Trina. Thanks for reminding me. I do say in the book, actually, this is the opposite of social media.
Yes,
It's private, personal media. It is just for you, because everything we do now is public. It's showing the world. It's external. We need a little time for ourselves.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And much of what you both have talked about is connection. So we're talking about, we've been talking about social media and connection. And I think RB, you even said like you were giving people some hard truth, which is hard to do when you're not like really in a trust relationship with folks. You're not in a connected. You have a lot of folks on your platform. So how do you generate that connection with people in the platform while you're balancing human connection with friends and family and people who are close to you? What does that look like for you? How do you find that balance?
That's a great question. It goes back to what Stephanie just said about taking personal time for yourself. I actually got asked this question this morning on Stage 32, no lie. How do you, I see you out on social media, I see you out in the world, and then I see everything you're doing on the platform. Like, how do you have the time? And the response was, everything starts with routine. Everything starts with, my mornings are always, first thing in the morning is something for me physically or mentally, or hopefully both. Okay. Then the second thing is I spend at least a half hour working on networking and relationship building on Stage 32. That's been for the last 12 years, because I understand I treat networking like a job. I tell everybody that. I treat relationship building as part of my job, just like writing a screenplay is part of it. But if I can't get people to read it, what the hell's the difference, right? And I always say that relationships lead to reads. So you put in that work. So that's a half hour of my time. And then the next little bit of that time in the morning, always these are the 3 parts of the routine. The third part is reading the trades. So I understand what's going on in the business at all times, who's moving where, what's going on, who's buying what, all those things. So I have a knowledge base of, being able to speak intelligently when I'm in rooms or in meetings, and excuse me, also to serve the community, to be able to, disseminate that information. So for me, it's, I always say that it's not, I don't like the word balance, because I feel like it creates this mythical thing where you have this 50% work and this 50%, whatever. To me, it's all about happiness in all pursuits. So if 70% of your work week is, focused on work, but you're enjoying doing it, so be it. If you have a week where you're like, you know what, I just can't do it this week. I can't, create, I can't, I don't want to be as invested in my business. I want to spend 90% of my time with friends and family, and that makes you happy and that rejuvenates you and gets you going. That's great. But the big thing is you don't have to apologize for anybody about how you manage your time. You don't have to answer to anybody. It's your life, it's your time, right? And at the end of the day, everybody says time is money. That's also bullshit. Time is time. Money you can get back, time you can't get back, right? So to me, it's about routine. I'm very fortunate that I get to mentor, a lot of people in the industry, but I also get to mentor entrepreneurs. I could tell you the one change that has led to the biggest benefit for every single person that I have ever mentored who has come in with this, I'm overwhelmed, I can't do it, is a morning routine. A repeatable morning routine that's for you, not getting up first thing in the morning and going, like Stephanie said, 15 minutes upon wake. That's an amazing step. 15 minutes upon waking, you consume as much as we did 50 years ago in a week. No wonder why you feel overwhelmed, right? Do stuff for you, do stuff for your mental health, your physical health, and then build off of that in the day. By 8 o'clock every day, I feel like I won the day, and I'm doing the same 3 things every morning.
So I'm going to actually steal your quote from my playbook when I get my book next week, Stephanie, which is happiness in all pursuits.
Happiness
I
in all
love that.
pursuits.
That is now one of my quotes. Appreciate
I
that.
think that could sound like your life philosophy, Trina.
Yeah, I love it. I love it because you're right. That balance is not a real, and
It's not a real
actually
balance.
you alleviated me feeling like I'm constantly out of balance. So I like this gives me something a lot more positive to focus on. I like that.
No, when you put your head down on your pillow at night, do you feel like you had a successful day? Do you feel like you left
Yeah.
anything on the table? Like, I mean, that's really what it's all about. And most of the time, if you're in that mindset that I'm happy with what I'm doing, then, when you lie your head down on your pillow at night, you feel fantastic. And by the way, and then you wake up in the morning and before you even wake up, when you go to bed, that you're going to wake up with that repeatable routine that's all yours in the quiet, you know what I mean? And without anybody interfering, and it's totally in your control. And there's nothing better than that. That's the foundation for your day.
And there's also good routine at night. I'm the same as you. I have a routine for the morning. And at night, it's before you go to bed, is asking yourself, what 3 great things happened today?
Love
Or, or things that brought me joy, or what did I learn? And that forces you to actually, so a lot of times I'm like, oh yeah, that happened, because I'm remembering a problem, a challenge. And then I'm like, oh, wait a second, that happened too. That was nice. Oh, I saw a hummingbird. I love that.
It wasn't probably in particular like a social media engagement you had. It was probably something a lot more personal, or like you said, just something that happened in the day. But holding that gratitude is, I mean, you can't hold gratitude and, a lot of fear and other things in the same space. And so I love that the more that you can bring that into your life, the more you're setting yourself up for a lot more positivity and really forming the life that you want. So one of my last questions is just to talk about what is a piece of advice that you would give to folks who are engaging in your industry, who are on these platforms, who are young up and comers, who are people who, this isn't how the industry started for them, and they're kind of on the other side of it, but they're having to engage, in order to be relevant and to keep pace. So what would you give, just based on your experiences so far, any piece of good advice, sound advice?
Yeah, it's stuff.
I would say, number 1, follow accounts that will serve you well for your mental game, first of all, because being an actor, for me, I would say that the thing that really helped me the most is training my mindset. For the first 10 years, my self-worth was tied into career success and what other people's opinion was. So doing the work to train and then keeping it up every day, training my mindset, that was what's helped me, I think, stay in the game long. So follow accounts on Instagram that will help you with your mindset, but also accounts that help you with acting. There's a lot of coaches there who give great advice, or even actors who give great advice. And then find what works for you in terms of what you want to share. We're all different. Some people are more comfortable than others sharing. There's not one way to do it, but I would say even for me, writing down things is what helps me find those intentions that we had spoken about before, because I might be like, oh, I'll share this and this. Why? And then I might realize, no, I don't want to share. Actually, because for me, a tangible example would be, I want to be relatable. I want to be approachable. That's how I am in life. So, I could share some moments from my personal life, of course. And then I'm like, no, I actually don't want to share my kids' life, because that's their life. I don't want to bring them into that. And that's also dangerous. And so writing it down and figure out what works for you.
That is all gold. I mean, really all gold. I'm going to come at it from a little bit of a different angle, because I can't add to that. I think that's so great. I would say, and this is especially true of introverts as well. If you're listening to this and you're introverted and you feel like you don't have a place on social media, realize that everybody does, and realize that, you have as much a place on social media as you do in, again, the quote unquote real world. Right. So I like to say that, one, come from a place of selflessness. Give before you ask. You don't want to come in and make relationships and have the first thing be that you're asking. I have what I call the rule of three, which is where you either give or compliment or do something positive for the other person 3 times before you ever even ask for anything, even if it's like a follow. Don't come right in with that. All right. The second thing is ask questions. Don't be afraid. A lot if you're, and let me frame that. What Stephanie said about following the right voices, and we've talked a lot about that. If you're following the right voices and the people that are actually out there doing the right things on social media, giving sound advice, being there, because they want to give, those are the people you want to ask questions to. But ask quality questions, ask, informed questions. You want to ask things that they're going to want to respond to. Most people are willing to help, and most people are willing to give. You'd be surprised. A lot of people are on social media because they want to give back, believe it or not. And the third thing I would say is to come from a place of gratitude. Thank people for the content that they share. Thank people. If you get value out of something, don't just let it fall into a void. If somebody shares an article or something they wrote and it has an impact on you, let that person know. That's really what makes social media spin. If you're afraid of the fact that people aren't going to respond to you, imagine how it feels for somebody that's bringing an enormous amount of value where nobody responds to them, and nobody compliments them for the time and the effort that they put into it. Give back to people, give to people, like I said, come from a place of selflessness, ask questions and bring value.
I love that.
Oh my gosh, I ended up with so many notes that I took from this. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have a rule of 3. I need one of those. So thank you both very much for sharing, and really for giving us some insights into, your experience in the industry, but also your passion projects. I mean, both of you spoke so much of selflessness, of gratitude. And I think we need to focus on that more, and we need to bring that, each of us bring that authenticity into our social media relationship. And I think that, it really will start to dim out a lot of that noise and the negativity that we see in it, and really help people connect. It's here to stay, and it's worked for both of you in different ways. And there's a great leverage to it. And how do we use it as a way of connecting more and really focusing on that mental wellness side of it? So I can't thank you both enough.
Thank you so much.
Great questions.
Yeah, Trina, that was awesome. Thanks, RB, for having us.
No, thank you, Steph. And hold up your book one more time.
Here it is. Create your own private media.
And it's coming out what, Tuesday? Tuesday's a big day.
World Mental Health
Day. Yep. Fantastic.
And 50% of my did I say that before? 50% of my proceeds go to Give an Hour. So
that's awesome. Well, Dr. Trina, explain Give an Hour so people know that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a longstanding national mental health organization that focuses on helping people through human-made trauma. And we have this incredible network of mental health clinicians in every state who help us when we need to get individuals on one-on-one individualized care. But we also do a lot of work around peer networks. And so our feeling is that the answers to mental health are with every one of us, and each of us have a role to play in it. And so we really work to empower people, educate folks a little bit to elevate your mental health EQ so each of us can help each other. And so it's really about helping make healthy individuals and healthy communities. And that's how we're gonna battle the mental health crisis that we're in right now.
That's
And
remarkable.
conversations like this. Yes.
Remarkable. Really, really, really impressive.
Thank you.
Impressive.
Thank you.
I love the fact that you said, I know we probably lost like 3/4 of the audience right now because we were signing off, but I just do want to say you mentioned one thing that we didn't, I don't think, put too much focus on was you said community. And I think that that's really, really important. I think with mental health, these feelings of isolation when you feel displaced or you feel like you don't have a place on social media, or you see that toxic environment that doesn't jive with who you are, it's very easy to go into a shell. And that's why I think it's so important that, Stephanie's words about, finding the right people and having a little bit of a closed circle. It's okay to have a small circle. In fact, it probably is preferential in a lot of ways, but again, it comes down to what's your intent. What do you want? Right. And if you can identify those things and then set a morning routine, and this is the basis, a lot of Stephanie's book, do the personal work for yourself, like do the offline stuff that will lead to a more impactful experience online eventually, because you're controlling what you can control for yourself. And that should be the cornerstone of everything. Then it becomes so much easier to just shut out the toxicity and shut out the negative voices and all that. It's all a choice, right? It's all a choice.
Yeah.
That was beautifully said.
Thank you. Well,
Do it on your own terms versus on external factors.
that's 100% right. Well, this was great.
I could talk to you too, listen to you too for hours. So thank you for this. This was incredible.
Well, maybe we'll do a follow-up down the road.
I was going to say, I feel like there needs to be one for sure. So
Yeah.
thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you, RB, for all the work that you do. Mentoring people in our industry. Yeah. I love to work with young actors too. And it's so cool.
Thank you. Well, thank you for writing the book, because it's going to help a lot of people.